BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk, now in its 17th year, one of the city's longest running TV talk shows. Our phones are open. We're here live tonight, and so you can join the conversation at 718-960-7241. You can also email comments to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Well, one of the spin-off results of the controversy over the Kingsbridge Armory is a campaign to require a so-called living wage to employees hired by companies who receive public subsidies. But the concept has not been well received in City Hall, as evidenced by a report released by the mayor that simply rips the idea. This Thursday, the living wage bill proposed by two Bronx council members will have a hearing at the City Council. The Fair Wages for New Yorkers Act is our subject on Bronx Talk tonight. Please join me in welcoming two members of the Living Wage NYC campaign, the senior pastor of the Bronx Christian Fellowship, Reverend Q. English. Good evening. Thank you for joining us, Reverend English. And from the Latino Pastoral Action Center, Reverend Dr. Raymond Rivera. Reverend Rivera, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's just start. I mentioned that this was an outgrowth out of the controversy over the Kingsbridge Armory. So, Reverend English, why don't we start with you? Why do we need a living wage? Give me a little background about what you folks are touting here.
Well, we're just looking at the sustainability of our people in order to become viable citizens of our city. You're going to have to come above poverty wages. And that's what we're facing right now. We're facing $7.25 per hour without health insurance that they are suffering from. And all we're asking is that we go up a little bit higher. We're not saying they're going to come out of poverty with this wage. We're saying a living wage dictates $10 an hour with health insurance or $11.25 an hour without health insurance.
Is there any difference between this debate and a simple debate that says raise the minimum wage?
Yes, I think there is, because I think the people of faith, clergy that are part of this coalition, along with CBOs, along with unions, we come at this kind of from a moral perspective. It's informed by our faith. We don't think poverty is a good thing for people. And it's different because we're saying that if the mayor has given over $2 billion in subsidies to companies that are already companies that are economically viable, and if our tax dollars are being used to subsidize these developers, then they should pay a living wage. If they don't do that, the implication of it is that we're subsidizing poverty wages, and we think that that's morally incorrect. We don't think our tax dollars should be used to subsidize poverty wages.
Good old capitalism doesn't work anymore. Now we have to set higher, I'm not disagreeing from what you said that there are people who are not making enough money. Certainly we know about poverty in the Bronx. We know about the economic level in the Bronx. But why should they get a help that may not be available to somebody else, maybe who lives in another city, or maybe not even in a city and working on a farm upstate?
We really look at, the real issue is this. We're guaranteeing that people who work for developments that are subsidized by the city earn a living wage. That is our focus, and that is all what we're fighting for right now. And with that in mind, we're saying that these same people have to choose between a roof over their head or food on their table, whether or not they even have any type of family life, because the majority of them are forced to work more than one job. So we have to see that this bill is passed, because it is critical if we're going to move out of poverty. It's critical if we're going to even close the gap between the extreme poor and the extreme rich.
Somebody makes $7.25 an hour and then maybe moves up to $10 an hour. Are we realistically saying, well, now you won't be working in a poverty wage? I mean, it seems to me $10 an hour, not unless you're working, 400 hours a week, is not netting you a heck of a lot of money.
Right. I think Reverend English said that. I think this is not the ultimate answer, but we think it's moving in the right direction, and it's sending a message again to developers that if they want to do business in New York City, and if they want subsidies from our tax dollars, they have to provide a living wage. This is not a revelation that has come to us only in New York through some divine, appointment. It's happened in several cities across the country already. There's reports on those cities that kind of, for lack of a better word, prove that all of the comments that this destroys businesses, that it keeps businesses away, all of the reports that our people have on it, that have been working on it, says that that's not true. That has not happened. As a matter of fact, it encourages business. We disagree totally with the report that Mayor Bloomberg and EDC has put out. We think that is not an accurate report. We think it reflects the vested interests that these developers have. The other thing, I think it's the larger context of the city. Unfortunately, we've become the capital of economic disparity in the world. I mean, the gap between the rich and the poor is growing at such proportional rates that I think the mayor has to really think about that his whole administration may be characterized in that way. Then on his watch, the gap between the rich and the poor grew so significantly that we actually are being looked at as that place.
I'm simply going to rephrase the question, and then I do want to address some of the issues that are in the mayor's report. Again, the $7, the gap that you used, using your word, the gap between $7.25 an hour and $10 an hour, are we really solving a problem with that gap?
No,
absolutely not. We're not saying that we're solving a problem. What we're saying is that we're bringing them in from one level to another level, but it's a better level, because at this time we're saying not only are they going to raise the income level to $10, but we're going to give them health insurance, which is a big thing, not just in our city, but in our nation, because you got 2 million people in our 5 boroughs that are on food stamps, okay, while we're looking at Wall Street, whose bonuses are doubling every time you look around. So this is not something that we can't afford. We can afford this.
And if they don't want to do this, well, then they should just not get subsidies. This is only for the people that are getting subsidies. We don't think that the city of New York should be in the business of subsidizing poverty wages.
At $2 billion annually.
So here's what it says in the mayor's study. They say that 33% of retail projects located in the outer boroughs would not proceed under current economic conditions as a result of the cost mandated by the living wage provisions. That would probably, I'm guessing, have a larger negative impact on people at the low end of the scale than even having to, quote unquote, suffer with a wage of $7.25 an hour.
Let's start out with this. His administration has opposed living wage from the very beginning. Timing of this report being released just a few days before.
Well, clearly they did before the hearing. I mean,
right? But we're dealing with economic development policies that have failed throughout the year. We're looking at it today when it comes to homelessness. Okay, the Advantage program, which is like a revolving door for homeless people. More are going to end up in shelters, threatening 15,000 that may be on the streets. With his failed policy. So this is something we were anticipating from him. Okay, so for us, it's a bogus report. It's a bogus report. He hires someone, gives them $1 million. Guess what we could have done? I could sit here and spend an hour and tell you what we could have done with that $1 million instead of paying people that he knew to conduct a report that we knew would have his expected outcome. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with someone that hired his people to create a report to give him his expected outcome at the tune of $1 million. And so what do we say to that? Hogwash.
Yeah, we don't think the report has any credibility. Not only do we, but there's a lot of journalists that have also criticized the report, that has criticized the sources. John Liu, the controller, has come out against it and says that he doesn't agree with its conclusions.
Let me just tell you exactly what John Liu said. Let me take a minute. He says the EDC's claim that a living wage killed jobs shows just how distorted the agency's operations have become. The proposed living wage would be a requirement on new projects that are heavily subsidized by taxpayers. It may curtail the number of new minimum wage jobs with the hope that these new jobs would then pay a decent wage. The claim of job losses is rhetoric at its worst. And we're talking the comptroller. Who's better to give us that information?
Last week, the borough president on our show said that Stella D'Oro and Old London businesses leaving the borough were because of wage requirements and other requirements as a result of those industries being unionized, and that they went to a state that was not unionized. As a result of that whole situation, the Bronx lost 2 businesses and many people lost their jobs, and the reports have been that people who worked at those places are still looking for work. If we do this thing, and this is the allegation, whether you agree with the report or not, this is the allegation, what the mayor is saying, is that other companies are going to say, well, wait a minute, why would I do business in the city of New York? And they say that it's even worse in the outer boroughs because this is going to affect the outer boroughs even more. So why would I do business in the Bronx? From a business perspective, why would I want to do business in the Bronx if you're going to require things that I don't necessarily want to deal with?
You look at the, I'm sorry.
Well, we'll give you each a chance.
Okay.
I have some.
This has been done successfully in other cities. We talk about starting in 1994 in Baltimore. We have Los Angeles, we have Chicago, Pittsburgh, San Diego, and the like. None of them, 0 of all those cities has come back and reported that there's been some type of shortage or businesses have been affected or there's been some type of loss of jobs. None of that is being reported. As a matter of fact, we're going to prove that on Thursday when we get together for the hearing on May 12th. So it's been successful. This is not something that is like an experiment. This has been successfully implemented in various cities across the United States. And not only in various cities, but London is taking it up. Canada is taking it up. Why? Because they care about their people. There has to be a solution from getting us out of poverty wages, and we are not addressing that solution.
We're going to go to the phone in a second, but Reverend Rivera, you wanted to add something to that?
Well, I'm just saying, also the EDC, already there are some projects where a living wage has been enacted, and they're paying this. So they're paying this type of living wage.
What projects are you talking
about? It's already contracted that some companies already have to do this.
What projects are we talking about?
Health home aids, or is that what you're talking about? The bill that passed in original bill that passed in 2002, where 50,000 health home aids were affected by that, and the living wage bill was actually enacted.
And the other thing that I wanted to say, while the mayor may use these, scare tactics to some degree to perpetuate his position, but I think that from our perspective, this is also, as I said in the beginning, and I want to reiterate, it's a moral issue. We, as people of faith in the community and as spiritual leaders, do not feel that our tax dollars should be used to subsidize jobs that are poverty jobs. Whether that's going to solve all of the problems, whether there's that much of a difference in the gap, no, but we think it's the right message to say.
Are you saying to businesses like Stella D'Oro and Old London, you know what, we don't want your business?
What we're saying is to come up to our standard of living. Come up to our standard of a living wage. Meet it. It's not going to break your bank, Stella D'Oro. That's what we're saying.
And I don't know about Stella D'Oro because I don't know the specifics of that, but certainly I'm saying to the people that are the developers that are asking for tax subsidies, that if they ask for tax subsidies, the requirement is they have to provide a living wage job.
Honestly,
or else don't ask for it.
That is a distinction between what happened at Stella D'Oro and Old London. Those were not subsidized businesses. So I understand that.
Yes,
but I was just using that as an example of why a business would leave, because they would just look at the whole economic climate and say it's an unfavorable situation. Let's do this. Let's go to the telephone. Our buddy Mark from Pelham Parkway. It's been a little while, Mark. I know we've been on tape, so I guess you couldn't call in. But nice to have you with us today.
Hi, Mark.
Mark, are you with us?
I'm going to make you a statement because I've been in a few hearings about bringing industry to the Kingsbridge Armory, so I have firsthand knowledge on some things. First of all, $10 to me or $11 isn't even a living wage. I'd like to see even the part-time politicians like the state senators and the assembly people live on that for a year. I believe it was Anthony Weiner who tried to live on a food stamp allotment for a month, and he said you could become obese and end up as a diabetic after 2 months living on it. Here goes the issue. In Canada, where they have a living wage, in Montreal, the one thing we're forgetting is people here, the fear of losing your jobs here is your health insurance. In countries that are civilized, like Canada, Spain, England, France, they all have national health care. So your job is not tied to your health benefits. That's one thing.
So what's your point about that, Mark?
Well, the point
why did you bring that up?
That if you're going to talk about a living wage, you need training programs. A lot of these unions that are very strong, I was at a hearing where they want to take over and use the Armory for film production. So they had people from the major studios outside of the Bronx. And all of them wanted the Bronx to fix it up. They would come in and run it. And when they asked them, well, how many of these jobs would be the $25 to the $45, $50 an hour jobs for the Bronxites, they said, well, you got to understand, filmmaking is a very specialized field. It is. I am a filmmaker. I know what I'm making.
I'm losing what your point of view here is.
Well, here goes one thing. If you want to start economic development, you've got to bring in training. People have to be trained. You cannot become a steam fitter.
So now, is that a central issue to this
I think it's
discussion,
very
or it's a side issue?
You're always going to have a poverty if people don't step up and start training people. You can't become a manager if you're not trained to be a manager.
So what you're saying, Mark, what you're saying is, living wage aside, you say there's a larger picture here, and that this is a nice debate, but it's not solving all the problems. Is that what you're saying?
I believe in the living wage. No, it's not. But I think it's a start. But I think that, and I don't think, I actually know this for a fact, that I commend anybody who stands up. Because when Bloomberg comes up and makes this statement, you can't tell a private investor what to do. He's right. But I think it's Reliance, the real estate developer, when they give him $1 billion of my money to build the Gateway Mall, and then you got to pay to park your car in there, and you can't even park your car in there during a Yankee game, and they raise their prices to park. And they're saying they haven't made a profit yet, but that profit was built in already when they gave them our funds. Why are they not obligated to supply living wage jobs?
Got it. Okay, Mark, thank you very much. You wanted to react to what he was saying. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I totally agree with Mark's statement. We need training programs. We support training programs, but that's not the issue at the hearing. The issue at the hearing is that for a year, Speaker Quinn has not wanted to schedule a hearing. We know that the Bloomberg administration is against this, and we're calling on all our folks to come out to that hearing because we think that this is a move in the right direction, that we need the living wage passed, and the issue is a very simple one. Developers that get tax money, we should not be subsidizing poverty wages.
Let's talk about the politics of it since it's come up. 30 of her members, which is more than half of the city council members, have said that they would support the living wage bill. What do you think is behind Christine Quinn's reticence to come out? Is this because of a potential future run for mayor? Is this because of her apparent affinity for this mayor? Or does she simply oppose it on some other grounds?
I honestly think that it would be ignorant if we would not say that it definitely is tied to her potential mayoral run in 2013. Okay, so she's weighing all of those factors. I don't know about her ties with the mayor, but right now she appears to be taking a neutral posture until both sides are heard at the hearing, which takes place this Thursday, May 12th at 1 o'clock.
At City Hall.
At City Hall.
And anybody can show up.
Anybody can show up. Matter of fact, we're going to have a pre-hearing rally at 11 a.m. where we're hoping 700 to 1,000 people will show up with a special clergy prayer at 12:45 in the afternoon right there at City Hall. I think it definitely is tied to her mayoral.
We think that this is in the a character of the speaker to support. We hope that after she weighs all of these pro and con arguments, she does what historically she's done as a progressive politician, which is to advocate for the poor. We continuously call on her to do that, and we hope that ultimately she'll do the right thing and let this bill come to a vote and support the bill. We think that, we're very proud of the Bronx delegation. Everyone has signed up except one council person, and we hope that they stand firm when pressure becomes to be applied or to not vote for this, because they're representing their constituents. They know that working class people need a living wage, and this is, again, one step in the right direction.
I want to talk about this healthcare thing, which may surprise some of the people because they've heard this idea of $7.25 an hour and up to $10 an hour. This is an idea of adding a $1.50 supplement to help people purchase health insurance. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, yeah. Yeah.
And again, speaking from let's say a business owner's perspective, you know what? If I can afford to give health insurance, I would. But you're putting me now in a position that I can't possibly get into.
You mean with $10 an hour, or are you talking about the $11.50?
I'm talking about adding. Now we're talking $11.50.
Yeah, but the bill exempts nonprofit organizations and small business.
Yeah, if they're not at $100,000 and with $1 million in receipts, gross receipts, it doesn't apply, because at the point you're at $1 million in gross receipts, you can afford $10 an hour with health benefits or $11.50 without health benefits. That's what we're talking about.
The interesting thing that in our community, many people are already paying $10 an hour, and they're not getting subsidies. Some small businesses are paying $10 an hour. So it's really the epitome of arrogance and to some degree injustice that developers that are getting millions of dollars in subsidies will not pay what some small businessmen and nonprofits are paying without subsidies.
What would you say to this? People watch our TV show. We put the link out afterwards, and it goes who knows where. It's all over the place. It's on Facebook, and people in the city will watch it. I'd like to think people elsewhere will watch it. And they'll look and they'll say, you know what? Here's more people in the Bronx crying and begging for a handout. You know what? We're tired of people. They're begging. They're not ready to roll up their sleeves and play the same capital game that everybody else plays. And we're just tired of hearing them asking for, oh, please give us more, give us more, give us more.
Handout. We don't see this as a handout at all. I think that word handout, as far as those our people who are suffering right within our conversation, can be pretty offensive to them because they are not. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you can finish what you're saying. We'll give everybody.
Yeah, so, I mean, we don't see it as a handout. It's what's rightfully due them. And that is just the bare minimum of what's rightfully due them.
Right, and I don't want to indulge in political rhetoric and, cliche terms, but if there's any handout being given, it's corporate welfare. It's welfare to these developers that probably could do this. Some of the developers getting subsidies would do the projects without the subsidies. So there's some tides there. They've even done them without the subsidies. So there's certainly no handout. We're fighting for poor people and working class people, and this is part of that historical struggle. Rich people and developers and wealthy people, they never gave poor and working class people, you know that, your father, the immigrant community, my parents, anything we ever got was not because of the goodness of someone's heart. People had to pay for it, demonstrate, picket, they had to organize. It just wasn't given as a handout.
We just, by the way, put up on the screen your website. Do you want to call out the website so people can check out some of the information?
Absolutely. www.livingwagenyc.org. www.livingwagenyc.org for more information for you to come on board and join this growing movement.
Okay, and also the phone number is on your screen. One thing I also wanted to mention, I thought it was a very interesting provision in the bill, and again, the city would say this is going to scare developers away. You're also asking developers to monitor the wages paid by the store owners that they ultimately employ. So let's just say that Kingsbridge Armory had been turned into a mall. Under this bill, the developer would have been responsible for making sure that the individual stores. As a developer, I'll tell you, I might say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this, and I'm going to hightail it out of here and go build somewhere else. Is this another provision that scares developers away from building in New York?
All I can say is that based on the reports that we have where this law has been implemented successfully, that has not been the case. The cities that have reported have said that it's had a positive ripple effect for the economy, and we think it's part of a civil rights issue. It's part of a historical continuity of the workers' movement fighting for justice and fair wages. This is not isolated. It's connected to the demonstration that's going to be at 4 o'clock against the Bloomberg administration, because he's balancing the budget on the backs of the poor and working class people. This is one more component of this overall struggle. And I would say to the mayor respectively that he's in a lot of danger of his 12 years being characterized as the mayor that treated the poor very insensitively.
And in these
we're
cities,
almost out of time, so why
just
don't I...
one quick point,
Go ahead.
have not slowed growth in any of these cities that have implemented this living wage.
I'll give you a chance to have the final word,
Okay.
then explain to me and mostly to the viewers what you'd like them to do, where you'd like them to be, especially coming up this week when
This week,
this thing
Thursday.
looks like it's going to come to a
This
head.
week, Thursday, May 12th, we need to be showing up in record numbers. Clergy, if you're listening to me, I need you to push your congregation to join us at City Hall, 250 Broadway and Barclay in the park, 11 a.m. Hearing rally from 11 to 1 p.m. At 12:45, we're going to be getting together as clergy to pray. We want to see you show up in record numbers on May 12th for the 1 p.m. hearing.
Ray Rivera is saying, I got to have something to say, so we'll give you the final word.
Well, also, if you're working in Manhattan, take your lunch hour at that time and come to City
That's right.
Hall. And join us, because this is for you, it's for the workers, and we need all the support of
And
the
we're
workers.
not going away, Gary. They need to know that. This is a
been a year.
growing
All right.
movement. We're not going away.
We've been organizing a
Reverend
year.
Q English and Reverend Ray Rivera, thank you so much. Your passion is certainly infectious, and we
Thank you,
appreciate you
Gary.
joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Folks, if you have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of the program are available at bronxnet.org. You click Bronx Talk on the right-hand navigation bar. Next Monday night, we'll talk about how the Department of Education is handling special ed. And then on the 23rd, it'll be the question of access to the Jerome Park Reservoir. And then on Memorial Day, this is going to be very interesting, a fascinating program about how new technology is making caring for seniors and the ill a little bit easier. So lots of good talk coming up on Bronx Talk. Special thanks to our producer, Jane Folloro, and of course our director, Michael Arias, the cast of thousands who are around us, and to you too. Have a great night. Good night.
And so the king ordered his men into battle, and even though he was no longer acting in their best interest, they followed obediently. But what if they didn't? What if they just refused? What if selfish leaders got no support? What if people had the courage to stand up when something wasn't right? What if the government didn't just serve a lucky few? What if it was designed and run for all the people, no matter what race,